My name is Kathy. I'm a concerned citizen. I have family in the um, Kern district. So I'm just here to talk a little bit about the board resolution on August of 2025 opposing transgender girls in girls sports. I know this resolution is in opposition to the state law, which states that students can join sports and use facilities according to their gender identity. However, I would like to focus more on the rhetoric harm that not only hurts transgender students, but also all students, and some words from family members that attend the schools. We had some kids come to me and said something about how their friends feel excluded from school spirit. They feel they're being put aside from everyone else, and by refusing to acknowledge the students' gender identities, the board is saying that these children don't matter, right? This emboldens and prompts the bullying. And we know that trans youth are 2 to 2.5 times more likely to experience depressive symptoms, seriously consider suicide, and attempt suicide compared to the cisgender peers. The potential for harm does not only end in childhood, it goes above, into their workforce. And no matter what we say or do, transgender, non-binary, and gender diverse people will continue to exist. I feel compelled to ask, what are the measures that are in place to protect the children who, as a result of the decision made by the board, may now be singled out by discrimination, harassment, and bullying? And it's crucial that we ensure the safety and support them in thriving in school. And just want to make sure if there's anything to support those kids. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Jocelyn Frias, and I'm a community worker at California Rural Legal Assistance, where we have a program that specializes in LGBTQ+ justice. Earlier this year, on August 12th, you voted for a resolution opposing transgender girls in girls' sports. Although this opinion is the opposite of state law, which says that students can join sports and use facilities according to their gender identity, I'd like to focus on how such statements, even those that don't change California law, harm students, especially trans students. In effect, you're refusing to recognize students' gender identities, aka you're misgendering them. During the meeting where the resolution was passed, board members and community members alike used harmful language referring to trans girls as males instead of respecting students' identities, and even encouraged the isolation and othering of trans children in both facilities and sports. In a federal court case, a medical expert testified that misgendering can be degrading, humiliating, and mentally devastating. According to the California State Legislature, transgender and non-binary youth are 2 to 2.5 times as likely to experience depressive symptoms, seriously consider suicide, and attempt suicide compared to their cisgender LGBTQ+ peers. Your behavior sends a message to the rest of the students that their peers aren't valid, and this can embolden students to bully. In the 2021 National School Climate Survey by Gleason, 83% of LGBTQ+ students reported hearing negative remarks about transgender people, and 53% of LGBTQ+ students were sexually harassed, meaning unwanted touching or sexual remarks in the past year at school. The potential for harm does not end in childhood. These kids grow up and enter the workforce. In our work, we see a lot of cases where transgender employees have been harassed. Their coworkers and bosses call them slurs, make inappropriate comments, or worse. In a brief published earlier this year by the UCLA School of Law Williams Institute, it is reported that LGBTQ+ people are 9 times more likely to experience violent hate crimes than non-LGBTQ+ people. Having been born and raised in Kern County and being a product of the public education system here from K through 12, I want to say this as a community member. This resolution is not representative of the future our community is forging in this county. The diverse communities I come from and work with, who are often underrepresented in your boardroom's decision-making, are resilient in demanding what is just. So despite what you say or do, transgender, non-binary, and gender-diverse children will continue to exist. Their needs matter, their voices matter, and more specifically to the matter at hand, trans girls are girls. So I ask you, the board, to also help them thrive as they are equally a part of this community. Thank you.
I did want to give the public and the board a little summary of what I learned at the CSBA conference. I went to several workshops, and one of them was titled Latest Development on Title IX, And CSBA claims that Title IX is already protected by California law and that the new federal executive order called Keeping Men Out of Women's Sports does not supersede California law. And that's what they were stating at the conference. California has its own definition of harassment, which includes whether it is severe or pervasive. In a situation where a uniform complaint has been filed, it is up to the person investigating to determine whether or not the incident is severe. So, where is the standard in that? So I had some questions. As I sat through some of these workshops, being in California, there's definitely a liberal bent on the presentations and the perspectives. So that was one. Let's see, another workshop was called Fast and Furious, Keeping Up with Federal Action in Education, and what that means for our district. So there were 3 lawyers that gave a presentation, and one stated that the presidential administration cannot actually stop the U.S. Department of Education, only Congress can, and that the DOE outsources other departments like the Department of Labor, such as with Title I funding. So the Office of Civil Rights has come to a standstill, and we don't know who will be taking care of that, or taking that over, basically. Even if another department funnels the money, they will determine the parameters or strings attached. They also stated that California is developing their own Office of Civil Rights in 2027 in order to, quote, pick up the slack of the federal offices. And they will appoint their own anti-Semitism director. They also brought up a case. I'm telling you, it was hard to sit through these. I took a lot of notes. They brought up the case Mahmoud v. Taylor. That's the one with the opt-out form for parents who do not want their children exposed to LGBTQ materials. And they're talking about that will expand to preferred pronouns and or required immunizations. It's just got the snowball rolling with that, so that'll be interesting to see what direction that goes. California receives $44.3 billion with a B dollars for education. And in 2026, the year coming up, the federal government says that California must legally sign and align with Title IX on their stand on gender, because the state will need education funding next year in 2026. The attorneys predicted that they will not comply, as far as California not complying with federal, and will be sued, and then it will be appealed and go on to the U.S. Supreme Court. So this is going to be another journey. They also mentioned issues with ICE and outing policies and school choice. And then I do want to say just a couple things about the 10 Commandments. During the Thanksgiving luncheon, I know I shared that people were able to express what they're thankful for. And I kind of had this epiphany while I was there that it was a moment to thank. In my mind, for me, it was God with a capital G, but for other people, it was just a higher being. It didn't have to be the same God as me. But we gave them someone, a higher being, to express gratitude to. And I think that meant something to the people there. I think that, when we think about God, there's something in us as human beings that are looking for a higher being. And I'm not here to preach the gospel or anything, but I do believe that they shared how they were thankful for friends and family, and some were thankful for just the food in front of them. And that, I actually have this Bible that's called the Patriots Bible, but it has historical documents inside of it as well, which is pretty interesting. But it basically says, this one paragraph, it says, "It is amazing that at a time when such a concerted effort is underway to erase the role of God and faith in America's public life, our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., is filled with Christian religious symbols that adorn its buildings and monuments as an abiding evidence of God's role in American heritage. From the halls of Congress to the monuments to nearly every landmark building, biblical and religious quotations and images are inscribed and preserved as an official testimony to the true place God has in our nation's birthright and history. So I just think we can't ignore the fact that these founding fathers of ours believed they had faith in God with a capital G that allowed them to write these documents that allow us to now decide what God we want to serve. It doesn't have to be the same God, but the fact that they were moved by that to write the documents that we use today in our government, I think it's important that we tell our students about that. And it's not that we're pushing our God on them. We're saying, hey, this is how we're established, and now you get to choose with your family what God you want to serve. Last thing I want to say, really quick, is the Constitution of the California Constitution. The California Constitution has a preamble, and the preamble says, "We, the people of the state of California, grateful to Almighty God, capital A, capital G, Almighty God, for our freedom, in order to secure and perpetuate its blessings, do establish this Constitution." So it's even in our California Constitution. And thank you for taking the time to listen to me. That's all I have to say.
This is a quote that I've thought about quite often over the last few days. I wanted to make sure I got the wording right. "When I despair, I remember that all through history, the ways of truth and love have always won. There have been tyrants and murderers, and for a time they can seem invincible. But in the end, they always fall. Think of it. Always." Translation of that, God always wins. Doesn't matter which God it is. I know the God I worship. I don't think he's different than a lot of the gods that other people worship. And I think that what Lori said with regards to, Trustee Cisneros said with regards to recognizing that you are not the universe, that there is something much larger that you should pay attention and homage and gratitude to, very, very foundational. I think it's an incredible thing for folks to remember. So, as far as the Ten Commandments are concerned, we will revisit that. When it comes to gender identity, I got a lot in common with dead owls. I don't give a hoot. All right? I recognize students for what they are, for who they are, rather. I try not to focus too much on what they are. And God bless any child who is going through the confusion of not being able to recognize and acknowledge the sanctity of the biological sex that they were born, really and truly. I believe that the problem lies elsewhere other than in trying to make absolutely positively sure that they are protected in that identity. They are fragile beings. They're very fragile. And they're concerning. They're particularly concerning to anybody who sees them as people. We don't identify them. We look at who they are as opposed to what they are. And that's what we want to reach out to. Is to the who, not to the what. And I'm tired of seeing the what being pushed. I'm really tired of it. And I'd like to go ahead and ask any of the people here, which would you actually prefer that your students were exposed to? This continuing onslaught of political correctness, of wokeness, or maybe an occasional glance at the Ten Commandments? What is it so horrible about the Ten Commandments? What is it that scares you about them? I can promise you that God is a loving God. I can also promise you, too, that he knows far better than any organization out there that's taking money to go on ahead and push an agenda on kids will ever know. Really and truly. That is the truth. God always wins. He's going to win this one too. It's an honor to serve on this board. It really and truly is. It's an honor to be able to have an opportunity to disagree with people from time to time. It's an honor to go ahead and be able to agree. I was asked in a letter to the Bakersfield Californian by Judge Robert Tafoya if I had actually gone ahead and polled my constituents with regards to what was assuredly going to be my vote when it came to the resolution on the Ten Commandments. And I told them I didn't poll anybody. We had an election. They put a couple of us into office. They put a couple of us here on this board. Those are the people that we answer to. And those people are the majority. They really and truly are. Those are the people who are caring about their kids. Those are the people who are concerned with the face of education here in Kern County. And that's going to start to become very, very important because a number of other things are happening here in Kern County with regards to the oil permitting, with regards to water infrastructure projects, with regards to the current administration up in Washington, which is really mixing things up. And really, truly important to remember that if we're going to go ahead and rebuild the oil industry here in Kern County, we're going to have to rely upon getting experienced people to come in and build our production infrastructure. And those people are going to be very, very needed, and they're going to be very, very important to the economy of this county. Something that we are also dedicated to is making sure that we're doing what we can for education in this county. And a lot of those parents that are coming from other places are bringing kids with them. And they might very well just go ahead and say, California? No way. I'm not putting my kids into that public school system. And we are going to be out those experienced workers and those families to go ahead and enroll in the schools. We'll be out that because we can't seem to come to an agreement about some very, very basic fundamentals when it comes to education. Students are there to learn. They're not there to get spoon-fed indoctrination. They're there to work. They have jobs to do. Sometimes their feelings matter. A lot of times their feelings might not, because they have a job to do. And it's the job of teachers to go ahead and make sure that they do that job. Well, based upon scores that I've seen, teachers in Kern County, and I'm sure that a majority of them are very, very good teachers. But there's something drastically wrong with what's going on. It could be the distraction of the last 5 or 6 years. But we're going to be needing those experienced people to come into this county and help to rebuild this county and this state. So keep that in mind as you go ahead and look for the battles to fight. And do ask yourself that question: what is it about the Ten Commandments that scares you so much? I'd really be interested in hearing.
As you all know, we've been discussing the Ten Commandments in depth, and we've had a lot of discussion about it. We've had letters, we've had phone calls, we've had communication, and we've engaged the community, and I've enjoyed listening to everybody's sides of what they perceive as the Ten Commandments. I disagree with a lot of it, and they may disagree with me with a lot of it. But there's some that I do, even those who are opposed to it, I value your opinions, and I agree with a lot of it. So it's been a very emotional time as a board. I think we've learned a lot, how to navigate this and what we should do and not do. I responded to every email I received, and I received tons of them, and I'm sorry if I didn't get back to you, because some of them came straight to our county office and I didn't get your emails. And some of the letters that I received back were just so thoughtful and nice, just because I took the time to respond to them and tell them what my views were, and to thank them for their conversation and what they think. I really, really have valued the time and the effort that everybody has put into this. It's been extremely beneficial for, I think for our community to come together, to talk about this, to discuss it, to learn about it, because I've learned a lot about it, and I think other people have as well. I'm going to read a letter in part that I did receive from a lady who did come to the meeting last month. And I just wanted to share with you a little bit about what she said. Those opposing the Ten Commandments claim that the posting somehow represents the establishment of religion and not a list of rules for virtuous living. However, the Ten Commandments have long been recognized as a universal moral code that could not be more contrary to our everything goes culture as it barrels towards nihilism. America needs the Ten Commandments now more than ever. They should be spread, posted, and obeyed everywhere, not just in classrooms. Without them, we are not truly free. The Ten Commandments establish limits so that we may better exercise our moral freedom by using the command, "Thou shalt not," they identify the harmful actions like lying, killing, stealing that enslave us to the evil and vice that inhibit the practice of virtue, which is the foundation of ordered liberty. They show all prodigals the way back to the Father's home, and that could be something that you agree with or don't agree with, but I'm just saying that this is what she wrote. They teach us to honor and respect legitimate authority. And she expounds on that, and she also said, by safeguarding the right of private property, they uphold order in society. So I think those were valid points. And the Ten Commandments have influenced political and legal issues by promoting social responsibility, and they establish the principle of equality under the law and emphasize the importance of social order and ethical behavior. Religion is included in public schools and school curricula in the United States through academia in subjects such as CRT, BLM, sex ed, and LGBT. Those are all beliefs. And if you believe something, that is a form of religion. And so if you have to, and there is New Age in a lot of that, but I don't see the uplash in those types of things in the community. Many religious customs and standards are being taught to our students, such as Islam, New Age, and even Satanism, such as a satanic school in Tehachapi. In the realm of tolerance, our students can learn everything but Christianity. The mention of God brings a spiritual backlash. We say the Pledge of Allegiance in schools still. It mentions the name of God. Whose God are we under when we say that? Again, like what other trustees have said, it's the God of your belief. That's the same logic as the Ten Commandments. They represent moral foundations from many faiths. The First Amendment guarantees freedoms concerning religion, expression, assembly, and the right to petition. It forbids Congress from both promoting one religion over others and also restricting an individual's religious practices. It guarantees freedom of expression by prohibiting Congress from restricting the press of the rights of individuals to speak freely. The First Amendment has two provisions concerning religion, Establishment Clause and the Free Exercise Clause. Today, what constitutes as the establishment of a religion is often governed under a three-part test by the Lemon Law, and we have talked about that. The fallacy of separation of church and state also often misrepresents the intent and application of this principle. It is commonly believed that the separation means that religion should have no influence on our government or public life, which is not entirely accurate. Key points to consider are the historical content, the phrase that there should be a separation of church and state, originated by Thomas Jefferson in the Danbury Letter in 1802, emphasizing protecting religion from the government. The First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution prohibits Congress from establishing a religion or prohibiting free exercise thereof. The First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution prohibits Congress from establishing, I already have that in there. I should read my own writing. misrepresentations about that. Some argue that the separation implies that the religious belief should not inform public policy, which can undermine the role of personal values in government and governance. Others believe it leads to exclusion of religious perspectives from public discourse, which can limit democratic engagement. The balance between maintaining a secular government and respecting religious freedoms continues to be a contentious topic in legal and political areas, and I think we've seen that. So much research and effort has been into this vital subject, and I do believe that the posting the documents as a historical document. So we didn't focus on this as a historical document. We only focused on the Ten Commandments, which the other documents were totally ignored, and I can see why. But in reality, they were all supposed to be together and present as an educational tool, not as a religious anything to our students, or we're not promoting religion at all. So we've had a lot of discussions and research on this, and as a board, I think that at this time we're going to not proceed with this. There's been a couple of there's one lawsuit in one state where they are challenging the Ten Commandments. There's been a stay in another state, it's in Texas, and they are in the process of probably pulling that out, and it may go to the Supreme Court. So I don't feel that, even if we tried to do this, it would just be a battle that we would not win. And I don't see that we would go down this road right now. But I do anticipate that somebody would, at some other time, will bring it up. And if they do, we've learned a lot. We've discussed it a lot. And I want to thank everybody who's contributed to this vital subject. It's been a lot of work. And I appreciate that everybody came out and voiced their views. So thank you again.